and welcome to the Movies Past and Present podcast. It's September 15th, 2021, and this is episode 74. I'm your host, Stanford Clark, and I'm podcasting from the crossroads of the West in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. Just like my blog, moviespastandpresent.com, I'll be providing recommendations, commentary, and reviews about current and classic cinema. Thanks for tuning in, and let's do this thing. All right, well, I'm back after a bit of a break and excited to talk about current and classic cinema with you. New in theaters this Friday, September 17th, are two, I think, pretty interesting films. First one up is called Cry Macho. This is a drama from Warner Brothers. It's directed by Clint Eastwood. And let's be clear, Clint Eastwood is 91 years old. And he is still directing and acting in movies. I mean, come on, that's kind of amazing. Even though, you know, clearly he looks in a lot of ways, I think, acts his age. I still think it's pretty phenomenal. So again, from Warner Brothers Pictures comes Clint Eastwood's uplifting and poignant drama, Cry Macho. The film stars Eastwood as Mike Milo, a one-time rodeo star and washed-up horse breeder who, in 1979, takes a job from an ex-boss to bring the man's young son home from Mexico. Forced to take the back roads on their way to Texas, the unlikely pair faces an unexpectedly challenging journey during which the world-weary horseman finds unexpected connections and his own sense of redemption. Hopefully you've seen the trailers for this, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty compelling drama. And again, have I mentioned that Clint Eastwood is 91 years old? Cry Macho is going to open simultaneously in theaters this Friday and on HBO Max. And it is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association for language and thematic elements. Also opening up this weekend is The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is a biopic from Searchlight Pictures. This is directed by Michael Showalter. And The Eyes of Tammy Faye is an intimate look at the extraordinary rise, fall, and redemption of televangelist Tammy Faye Bakker in the 1970s and 80s. And I remember seeing Tammy Faye and her husband Jim Bakker on TV. So again, Tammy Faye and Jim Bakker rose from humble beginnings to create the world's largest religious broadcasting network and theme park. And they were revered for their message of love, acceptance, and prosperity. Tammy Faye was legendary for her indelible eyelashes, her idiosyncratic singing, and her eagerness to embrace people from all walks of life. However, it wasn't long before financial improprieties, scheming rivals, and scandal toppled their carefully constructed empire. This film looks really interesting. Jessica Chastain plays Tammy Faye Bakker, and you know, one of the very distinctive things is, as you may recall, about Tammy Faye Bakker is that she was really into eye makeup, and she had just tons of eyeshadow and mascara and eyeliner, which of course would always run when she would cry. But anyway, her eyes were a very memorable part of her television persona. But Jessica Chastain looks like she's really embraced this role, and it's going to be interesting to see her play it. Her husband Jim Bakker is being played by Andrew Garfield, and also some other interesting cast members. Vincent D'Onofrio is on board. He's playing Jerry Falwell, who was also a very popular televangelist at the time. Cherry Jones plays Rachel, who I believe is Tammy Faye Bakker's mother. So anyway, this looks like a very interesting drama, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think I'm seeing it next week. So The Eyes of Tammy Faye is going to be playing exclusively in movie theaters. It is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association for sexual content and drug abuse. So, again, new in theaters, two films, Cry Macho, which is going to be in theaters and on HBO Max, and The Eyes of Tammy Faye, opening exclusively in theaters. For reviews this week, I want to finally put out my review for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is the latest film from Marvel Studios, and it is an origin story of another Marvel Comics character, shockingly, named Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was first introduced in Marvel Comics in 1973. This was at the height, particularly in the U.S., of kind of a craze of martial arts, films and entertainment. Bruce Lee movies were hugely popular. Also, I remember on TV there was a show called Kung Fu. It starred David Carradine, some white guy playing this role, but it was a pretty cool. Maybe that kind of established my interest. I really love, I love martial arts movies, and need to, I think, continue to expand my horizons with many of these since I think so many of the good ones have been made internationally. More to follow on that on a future episode of the podcast. So for this film, again, as I mentioned, it's an origin film. Shang-Chi is played by a Chinese Canadian actor named Simu Liu. I hope I'm saying your name right, Simu. I first was introduced to Simu Liu on a sitcom it's a Canadian sitcom actually, but it's played in the U.S. It's on Netflix. It's called Kim's Convenience, and I don't know if you've had a chance to ever see Kim's Convenience, but it's I think it's pretty entertaining sitcom, and Simu is very good in that role, and he's really great as Shang-Chi. He's got the charm and the swagger and the athleticism to really pull off a role like this. Also starring in the film is Awkwafina, who is she plays a character named Katie, and Katie's not only the comic relief, but she also plays a really critical role in the action and in the plot. So she's terrific. I was absolutely crazy about also the rest of the cast. Tony Leung is in it. He plays Shang-Chi's father, and also the possessor of the 10 rings. These 10 rings are these armbands that give you special power. So again, I'll leave it at that, so you can experience the movie for yourself if you haven't already. Michelle Yeoh is also in the movie, and I love her so much. She plays Shang-Chi's aunt. So anyway, I think really one of the big stars of this film too is the director. He is Hawaiian, actually. His name is Destin Daniel Creighton. Hope I'm saying his name correctly too. But this film is so expertly made. Terrific, absolutely terrific action sequences. It's one of those films that the action sequences could easily have been done in kind of a shaky cam style or something where you don't necessarily know what's going on. But again, Marvel Studios films are pretty good, I think, with both their action sequences and their use of computer generated imagery, because there's a lot of CGI in this film, but it's really expertly done. And there are a couple of fight sequences. Actually, I mean, every fight sequence in this film is good, but there's a couple. There's one on a bus that you might have seen, and I believe that there's some stuff on YouTube, and I will put a link to it in the podcast notes on my blog. There's also another one which takes the place on the side of a skyscraper. And again, they're all doing this with special effects and whatnot. But it's so exciting, so clever, so interesting. This film also goes into that category, and I hope I'm saying this right, but it's wuxia, I believe it's called, which is, focused on like historical martial arts, or, these martial arts films that are set maybe in the past. But there's a real fantasy element in them where some of these characters have some ability to fly or to do kind of more magical things. Magical creatures can also be involved. And that's all used in this film, I think, in a really expert way, which makes it, again, very entertaining, very compelling, and great to watch. This film is playing exclusively on the big screen, and I think it's been doing quite well. It sounds like from box office reports. So that's nice. And again, it's one of those types of films that you probably would want to see on the big screen if you're into that sort of thing. So I highly recommend Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. Again, now playing in theaters. So, I've been watching a lot of musicals this year, mostly because I've been following a viewing guide that's published by Turner Classic Movies, which is called Must See Musicals. And this viewing guide lists 50 musicals that they believe are particularly important or relevant in kind of the history of musicals, as well as to get, just highly representative of musicals of the time periods that are, as well as just really good movies. So I've been documenting this on my blog at moviespastandpresent.com if you want to take a look at some of that. And again, I'll have links to that in the podcast notes on my blog. But there are 3 of these musicals that I wanted to call out that I've watched recently that might not necessarily be on your radar, because of course some of the classics are in this viewing guide, like Singing in the Rain, which of course is not only one of the best movie musicals ever made, it's just one of the best movies ever made. The Sound of Music, which I adore. More recently, they've got Chicago and La La Land. So anyway, it's been fun stuff. So I've been watching these movies in the chronological order that they've been listed, and I've been trying to watch one a week because again, there are 50 that they've added. So first up is a film from 1957. It's The Pajama Game, and this is a movie that is based on a Broadway play, as many of these Hollywood musicals are. They first got they get their start on the Broadway stage, but and I had probably seen this movie at one point, and this is probably too much information, but I'll share it anyway. So the how every high school typically puts on some kind of a musical once a year. My senior year, our high school put on The Pajama Game, but I didn't see it. I was in the musical. I had a side part in the Hernando's Hideaway scene, and I never got to see the whole show because anyway, just how it worked, or I just saw it from the sidelines. I didn't necessarily know what was going on, but anyway, TMI. But there you have it. So it was really enjoyable because I was familiar with some of the songs, based on my high school experience with this movie. But the opening credits start in this movie, and it is co-directed by Stanley Donen, who is really, I mean, he also, Stanley Donen was involved with Singing in the Rain. He and Gene Kelly collaborated a lot. He's just directed some of the great musicals and just some of the great movies of the time period. So it kind of had me at Stanley Donen, and he doesn't disappoint. He co-directs it with George Abbott, who was a legendary Broadway writer, producer, and director. And so, anyway, interesting collaboration, and what really made for, I think, for a really interesting and compelling film. So Doris Day stars in this film. It takes place in the state of Iowa at a pajama factory, and she is she's pretty responsible. She's over, if I'm not mistaken, the employee grievance committee. If I remember the specifics of the name of that committee. But anyway, she's a well-respected person at the pajama factory. And the pajama factory, the employees are restless in that they want a pay raise, and so the owner doesn't really want to give them a pay raise. He hires a new superintendent to really, his job is really to oppose the workers' demand for this pay raise. He is played by Broadway star John Raitt. Now, John Raitt didn't really star in a lot of movies, but he was great. He's a great Broadway star, and really great in this movie. Just as a side note, too, he is the father of musician Bonnie Raitt. So anyway, there you have that. Trivia. But John Raitt, I think, is great in this role, and it's got a terrific supporting cast, really fun musical numbers, and it's just silly, of course, how instantly people fall in love and whatnot, but it's very romantic and delightful. Great songs, great musical numbers, great dance sequences, and again, I attribute that to Stanley Donen, of course, because he's just so good. So anyway, if you get a chance, find a copy of the Pajama Game. I believe that I rented it on Apple iTunes, and it was definitely worth it. I really got a kick out of this film. Next up, for something completely different, is a French film that got added to this list, but it's a real classic. It's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and this is a film that was directed by the great French New Wave director Jacques Demy, and I think there's some debate whether this is actually a French New Wave film, although I think it has many elements that probably would fit into that category. Still, this film is, of course, it's a musical, because we're talking about musicals here. But not only is it a musical, there is not a spoken word in it. So the whole thing is sung. It was actually, the soundtrack was pre-recorded by professional singers, and then the actors lip sync it. But wow, it's great. So it stars Catherine Deneuve and Nino Castelnuovo. So as young lovers, and they they fall in love, but they're very young. I think she's 17. He's maybe 20. He ends up having to go off to military service, and It's it's sad. Let's just put it that way. It's young love gone wrong, but this film is so compelling, partly because of its nature that it's all musical. But Jacques Demy and his creative team, they filmed it all on location in the city of Cherbourg, France, and the exteriors and interiors are something else. They used a color palette with wallpaper and paint, and all, not to mention the costumes that they put on the cast that are really something else. The music was composed by jazz legend Michel Legrand, and it's jazz, and so it's very listenable. And there'll be some songs that are or themes you'll recognize that are recurring, but it almost feels in a way more operatic than kind of pop, even though the vocal styles of course are very kind of pop and jazz like, but again, part of that is just that they're just singing kind of this basic dialogue, or almost kind of mundane dialogue, as they're talking about their days or their feelings or whatnot. But anyway, it was just a delight to watch this movie, and I think it's quite a brilliant piece, and I just highly recommend it if you're willing to be a little adventurous in your film watching. Last up is the film I watched this week from the viewing guide, and it's A Hard Day's Night from starring the Beatles, and it's like a 90-minute music video. It just reminded me so much of what I loved about the original MTV. Not necessarily the MTV we have today, which is just mostly just a bunch of stupid reality shows with a few music videos thrown in there, in the middle of the night. But back in the day, there was a lot of great stuff being put out on MTV, and I think that honestly, that a lot of these artists were influenced by this film. So this film, it's directed by Richard Lester and filmed in black and white. And it's basically, the Beatles perform the songs on the album A Hard Day's Night, and either they show them actually in a performance. They are being on a TV show, is what it is. Or they're going to be on a TV show in the UK. And this is at the height of Beatlemania, so it's basically them being chased by their screaming enthusiastic fans, and then just kind of the hijinks that are going on. They've created a kind of a crazy little plot where Paul McCartney's father is really not his grandfather, he's just an actor, playing his grandfather. Kind of sets a lot of this craziness in motion. So in some ways, it feels like it's a screwball comedy combined with a really great music video. I think what really impresses me about this film is Richard Lester's camera, and what an interesting job he does with how he films it, and which makes it for a very unique experience. I think probably a combination of the cinematography and the editing, and then just to be able to see the Beatles at this time period. This film is from 1964, and they're on their way to stardom if they're not already there. But I just feel like there's something about the immediacy and the youthful exuberance that is captured on this film that I just am really impressed by it, and it's really a film that I love. So A Hard Day's Night, again, particularly if you like the Beatles, I think is definitely something that you might want to add to your list. Well, that does it for this episode of the Movies Past and Present podcast. Again, links and more information about the movies discussed in today's podcast can be found in the podcast notes on my blog at moviespastandpresent.com. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. Links are also on the blog. Also, follow me on Instagram. The handle is @moviespap, as in past and present. As always, I hope you'll enjoy some good movies this week, whether they be from the past or the present. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, be safe out there and dedicate yourself to the truth.